coming in late, but we will proceed anyway, and they can catch up. I'd like to first of all just say hello. My name is Kernan Webb. I'm a professor here in the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson University in the Department of Law and Business. And I'd like to welcome all of you who are here for the first time, and also welcome back all of you who are coming back for a repeat visit of one sort or another. This event is part of a series of talks that's organized by the Ryerson University Institute for the Study of Corporate Social Responsibility. And we're very lucky here at Ryerson University to have a number of student organizations who are also very interested in the topic of social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. And I would like to point out three such excellent groups who co-sponsored this particular event, that being the Ryerson Corporate Social Responsibility Student Association, the Ryerson Commerce and Government Association, of which we've got members from both, and the Ryerson Law and Business Student Association. I'm not sure if we have anybody here from them today, but thank you very much to these three co-sponsored student organizations. The idea behind the talks in general is to bring in somebody who is a subject matter expert on some aspect of corporate social responsibility, and it's an opportunity for them to present some of their ideas, and for the audience to ask questions, provide commentary, etc. Typically what we do is we have, in the way of audiences, we have a combination of professors, students, business people, government people, and NGO people, and in addition to interested people from the community. So we've got an interesting cross-section of people, and this is no exception. That having been said, this being between the end of the winter session and the beginning of the spring session, you'll have noticed the lack of students in the hall, and that reflects the fact that they're all largely celebrating and sleeping in and doing the things that students like to do. And for those students who are here, full props to you for fighting that urge. That's an indication of your dedication to the topic of corporate social responsibility and your interest in it. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, the typical kind of first point of entry for a lot of people when they think of corporate social responsibility is voluntary activity, philanthropy, and basically businesses doing things that they are not required to do, and not really thinking of there being any particular legal dimension to what it is they do in the area of corporate social responsibility. The fact of the matter is, however, that there are numerous interconnections between law and corporate social responsibility. For example, when Walmart insists of their suppliers that they have to meet certain conditions, that's a term of their procurement contracts, and so that's a term of contract law. And when businesses go to banks for loans to do large-scale projects like mining or things like that, oftentimes, again, what they will do is they will go to a bank, and the bank will insist that as a term of getting a loan, that they will also have to meet certain CSR performance standards. At that point, when they insist on meeting those performance standards, that becomes a contractual term, and that is where law is involved. Another example is where, for example, Canadian mining firms go into developing countries, and they have they hire a security force to ensure that the perimeters of their mine are kept secure. And then that security force ends up getting into some sort of trouble with the local community, perhaps injuring them or doing another thing to them in that way. Well, one thing that, for example, Canadian mining companies do is they will insist that their security forces who they hire as a term of contract meet international standards. And again, that's a way in which the law then is imposed on the security forces. And if they run into problems, it's possible that the community might sue, or members of the community might bring a lawsuit against the company, at which point, again, the tort of negligence can be involved. And the question will be, what is the standard of care that should be met? So these are all ways in which the law and corporate social responsibility intersect. In addition to that, increasingly you will find governments requiring that companies meet certain reporting requirements, comply or explain reporting requirements, or other types. And that's where my friend and colleague, Ryerson Liu, comes in. Ryerson and I have got a joint project between the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and the Ryerson University. We have a joint project that is looking at differences and similarities between the way in which corporate social responsibility and the law operate in Hong Kong and how corporate social responsibility and the law operate here in Canada. So Ryerson has been busy looking at the Hong Kong side of it, while I've been busy looking at the Canadian side, and then we are discussing and meeting to come up with more broad-based observations about the two jurisdictions, and then we're going to be hopefully expanding that to look at other jurisdictions. And every jurisdiction is unique. Every jurisdiction is a little bit like a laboratory, because in every jurisdiction they have the opportunity to test out a different approach, and of course their particular citizens, the makeup of their industry, their background, historical background, the makeup of their people is different. So not too surprisingly, the way in which things are done are different. But there's an incredible opportunity for learning from one jurisdiction to another. Some jurisdictions might try a particular approach, and once they try it, other jurisdictions will try it as well. And so you have learning of that sort of thing. So really the comparative study of how corporate social responsibility operates and the role of government with respect to that is an area that's really ripe for very interesting study. And that's kind of where Ryerson and I come into it. A little bit of background with respect to Ryerson. He is he's a doctorate professor as well. He's the associate head and associate professor of law at the School of Accounting and Finance at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So an interesting parallel is that both within the business school at Hong Kong Polytechnic and at Ryerson University, there's a law group within it. There's law professors within the business school. So we have that in common. He's currently a visiting research professor at the New York University Stern School of Business. Dr. Liu's teaching and research interest centers on legal development, corporate governance, and corporate social responsibility in Hong Kong and mainland China. He's also the deputy director of the Center for Economic Sustainability and Entrepreneurial Finance at Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and the author and co-author of a number of different books. I'll give you an example of a title of one of his books: Truths and Half-Truths, China's Socioeconomic Reforms, and the Role of China in Global Dirty Industry Migration, as two of the titles of books he's written, and he's also published widely in a number of different academic journals of one sort or another, and he's on the judge panel for the Hong Kong's Best Corporate Governance Disclosure Awards. In short, Dr. Liu is extremely well positioned to give us some insights concerning the situation with respect to CSR and the law in Hong Kong. He's going to focus in specifically on environmental, social, and governance reporting in Hong Kong. And without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Dr. Ryerson Liu.
Thank you first, Nathan, for the very nice introduction. My name is Ryerson Liu. I'm from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. This is for this semester, I'm visiting the NYU Stern as a visiting research professor. So this is my first time to Canada. Okay, and then although I've been staying here only one day, I already very much like this city. So it's clean, everybody is friendly, very nice, and then the university itself is very centrally located. That impressed me a lot. And then just now the Knagen has already introduced you how this project is coming to be. So actually our two business schools are partner business schools. And then we want to do something together, and then we pick the CSR as our common interest. And also because our school has this center called Center for Economic Sustainability and Entrepreneurial Finance. And then the problem is we understand something about Hong Kong CSR initiations. Okay, and then you understand mostly about Canada. So how to make this project go? Okay, so we decide that how about I do a project on Hong Kong, and I can do a Canadian, and then we do a joint on comparative insights. So this is how it comes into being. Just a little bit about this center. So this center, as you can see, it covers two main aspects. One is economic sustainability. The other is entrepreneurial finance. So why we put these two things together? Because we believe that finance is a useful means to make things more sustainable, make it simpler. So in other words, our slogan, center slogan is finance for the future. Future means sustainable. Okay. Okay. So today my topic is the legalization of CSR, the Hong Kong experience on ESG reporting. The motivation of this paper is, firstly, of course, CSR is a contested concept. Okay, in recent years, it received a lot of publicity and controversy. Okay, different people have different views, and then there is a need for consensus building. Okay, but that is not the focus of this paper. This focus of paper is the legalization, okay, the regulation of CSR. Okay, so as Kanagan just mentioned, okay, previously people think of CSR as purely voluntary, going beyond the law, okay, based on ethical standards. Okay, sounds like CSR is something should not be regulated, but as we see in the past 2 decades, actually there is increasing CSR legislation and regulations around the world. Okay, in the next slide I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, and then this CSR regulation effectively makes many previously voluntary CSR become mandatory. Okay, so, and then when we talked about public firms, one means of CSR regulation is the so-called ESG reporting. That's the environmental, social, and governance reporting required by stock exchanges. Okay, so in other words, listed company every year needs to report not only in narrative description, but also in key performance indicators, quantified numbers, how they perform in these aspects. Okay, so although this is a reporting obligation, but you cannot make untrue statement, right? Otherwise, shareholders will sue you. So if you make true statement, if you report something too ugly, okay, then this doesn't look good. Okay, has capital market consequences. So in other words, through this CSR reporting, this is some push for companies to improve CSR. So it is the ESG reporting that my paper is focusing on. Okay, so that's the context. Just now I said, okay, I'll give you some examples of regulation of CSR. So just to give you 3 examples. First, Indian. Okay, Indian's companies law, companies bill 2013, mandates prescribed companies to spend at least 2% of their yearly net profit on social welfare initiatives. This looks amazing, right? So this every year you have to spend 2% of your net profit on CSR. Okay, that's a real commitment. And some papers have used this as a natural experiment to see how it affects shareholder value. Okay, so in Norway, this is about the gender equality. Okay? So law requires that no lower than 40% of the board members must be women. Okay? And then there's a Journal of Finance paper talks about that when it implements the law. By then, the average women percentage is only 7% for most companies. So this is a large shock. And then, even in Asia, Indonesia, the limited company law requires all companies in the natural resource sector to disclose their CSR activities. This all means not only public company, but also private company. So it's mainly because, Indonesia, there's heavy use of logging, okay, the natural resources. So in other words, there's evidence that increasingly CSRs are being regulated. And what exactly are the research questions in this paper? So we want to contribute to these questions. First, what drives this wave of CSR regulation? So what makes the governments more interested to regulate CSR? What are the government's motivations? And we have several hypotheses. We want to test which hypothesis is true. Secondly, how are the CSR regulatory policies formulated? We know that even government wants to regulate CSR, the policy-making process can be very complicated. Okay, you need to deal with stakeholders, there must be some interactions, but very little literature has looked at these interactions. So we want to uncover this black box. So third, those CSR policies, are they concrete and operational? Okay, if these policies are overly vague, unenforceable, unscientific, then the regulated, they don't enforce. Okay, so this is just like on paper. So are they concrete or operational? And then finally, what are the responses from corporations and their stakeholders? Mainly we use, in this paper, use event study to look at how it affects shareholder value. So basically, these are the 4 questions that we want to shed some light on. And one thing that distinguishes this paper from the majority of many papers is we look at it from a government regulator's perspective. Most CSR papers, they from the company's perspective, how it affects our value and marketing and other things. So throughout this paper, we are in the position of the government. Okay, so whenever we do cost and benefit analysis from the government's perspective. Okay, and then to address this question is, of course, it's very useful to put it into a specific jurisdiction, okay, to test. So here we use Hong Kong as a major case for study. So we need to have a framework to think about these issues. If we want to know what are the government's interests in CSR regulations, what does the literature say? So when we look at the literature, there are 3 views that are prevalent. They all tend to explain why government become interested in CSR regulation. One is, of course, societal governance view. So what is societal governance view? Societal governance view means that the government is mainly seeing the CSR regulation as a way to achieve its societal governance objective. Okay? So for example, many corporations, they pollute the environment, they discriminate the workers, and then this becomes something that this is like we call a market failure. Okay? The government interfered to address this market failure to govern the society. And also, so partly a response to the social and environmental problems caused by corporations, and partly to use CSRs to achieve its societal governance objectives. These larger objectives include, for example, welfare provision, emission reduction, energy consumption, non-discrimination, supply chain management, anti-bribery. So in other words, usually these are the things that it is the responsibility of the government. The government should do. Now, the government is mandating the corporations to do this. So in other words, it's like the letting the corporations to do some public goods provision to help the government to achieve its larger societal governance objectives. So to summarize, CSR activities are used for, so it's used by the government, okay, to achieve its objectives. And sometimes it is also used for supplements for the poor domestic institutions and regulations, especially in developing countries, where the government is incapable to achieve this objective. They want the government to do this. So this is like mainly a societal governance view of government interest in CSR. Now the second view is called the political actor view. This actually finds much